Hello participants, welcome back to this lecture 3 of our week 6 where we had been discussing about predicting and combating customer churn. In today's sessions, we will basically look into the economies of churn, how the economics of churn works, and we will try to relate it to customers' lifetime value. We have already understood that we must take some business initiatives, some marketing initiatives in order to prevent customer churn, and those initiatives are associated with certain cost for the company. Now, we have to understand the fact that the incremental gain that we are going to derive by preventing this churn has to be more than the cost incurred in implementing these interventions. So, that is the main topic of today's session, and we will try to look into how we should calculate those metrics. Let us dive in. So, first let us try to understand churn as a phenomenon of profit leak. Whenever there is a churn, as we have already mentioned, that we are losing on the monthly recurring revenue, MRR, right. So, it is impacting the anticipated value, anticipated profit for the organization, that creates a threat for the long term sustainability of the brand. The facts that we need to keep in mind is that churn reduces the future contribution margin. Second thing is that it increases replacement pressure through acquisition spending. If more customers are churning, because you have to keep your overall customer base intact. So, if customers are churning, you have to acquire some new customers, otherwise your production unit will lie vacant, and that is a loss for you. So, if you have to acquire new customers, then again you have to incur something called this customer acquisition cost. In various episodes, we have clearly mentioned that customer acquisition cost is always much higher than customer retention cost. Another aspect, another problem associated with customer acquisition is that the entire customer journey is going to be started afresh. The problem created here is that we may not have a deeper understanding of the newly acquired customer as compared to those who are already doing business with us for a longer period of time. So, there is a percolating effect here. One is the cost associated with the customer acquisition. Second one is that we need to probably identify the new avenues to establish a right connectivity with the newly acquired set of customers. So, this is difficult in terms of finances, this is difficult in terms of the human skills. Third point is that it can force discounting and reduce the pricing power. If there is more churn, most of the time we take an intervention such as reducing the price of the product. But if the price of the product is reduced, or I mean in a way, if we extend a discount campaign, we start with a discount campaign, in that case it has to be extended to everyone, and that will squeeze my contribution margin. So, this will have a long term impact on my business finances. Now, we need to understand the retention strategies, which we have already discussed. The genesis of retention strategies were already discussed, but today we will try to connect it with customers' decision making journey, so that we have a holistic understanding of how retention works, how we can reduce the churn. First thing that we need to understand is how there is a stimulation in customers' minds regarding purchasing or adhering to a particular brand. The journey starts with, typically the journey starts with the marketing initiative, such as an advertisement. A person, a potential customers will encounter this advertisement or message from the marketers, and in the advertisement there will be the value proposition. If the value proposition that is broadcasted by the marketers aligns well with the customers' needs and wants, then the first things that will happen is the customers will develop awareness and interest, as we have seen in our marketing funnel. First thing that customers will become aware about that this kind of brand or product exists in the market. Second thing, he will develop a feeling that this particular product offered, the value proposition of the product is gelling, aligning well with the need and wants of my life. So, in that case what will happen, this alignment will make sure that there is an interest developed by the customer. So, this is the interest phase. Then once the interest is developed, customers will go deeper in order to evaluate the brand in a industry landscape. What are the other brands available? What are the important features associated with the product? And what are the priorities, what are my priorities in terms of the features? Let us say if I talk about a personal vehicle, in that case for somebody it might be the mileage, for somebody else it might be the engine performance, for somebody else it can be the price of the car. So, everybody will have a different preference list, and accordingly they will put weightage in their mental framework, they will put weightage for each of these attributes or features, and then they will do a calculations and ultimately make a trade off based on the scores. For example, for me let us say engine performance matters the most, then in that case even if my score is lesser in terms of price of the car or let us say mileage of the car, I will still go with a Fortuner, Toyota Fortuner, just for example, right. So, but for somebody else it is the price of the product, so he might end up purchasing one Tata Safari. So, for somebody else it is the comfort, then that person will end up purchasing a let us say Innova High Cross, right. So, all these things will play a role, and each of these features will have different importance for different people. Then next one, once the purchase decision is taken, once it is zeroed down which brand the customer is going to buy, then next will, once purchase and post purchase happens, next comes the customer satisfaction. So, customers will have certain set of expectation before purchasing the product, and the customers will have perception of performance of that expectation. Customers will perceive that the product has actually met the expectation of his initial expectation, or it is well above the expectation, it might be below the expectation, it might be at par the expectation, and depending on that the customers will be either delighted, the customers will be satisfied, or the customers will be dissatisfied, right. And based on that the customers will have a emotional commitment to the brand. Remember that this satisfaction, dissatisfaction, delightment are derived from multi variables. It is not a single variable, right. So, the relationship is very complex. So, depending on that the customers will either develop an intention or propensity to repurchase the same brand or switch to other brand, right. This is the next stage. This is all about patronizing a particular brand. If I am repurchasing a brand, means I am gradually becoming a loyal customer of the brand. The next one is the next level, like I am not just becoming a loyal customer of the brand, I am going another extent and trying to influence the behavior of the people in my network. In a way, I am recommending these people about this brand, right. So, this is how you can the retention works. In order to look into the business value, what we have to do is as a business person, we need to enhance the base of our loyal customers. So, whom do we want to be our loyal customers? Those customers from which we can create the highest level of value. Those customers whose likelihood of churning in a shorter period of time or in near future is lesser. So, customer segmentation can also be done in terms of their probability of churning. First thing that we can do is that identify whom to target using the churn risk and customers value band. Second one, we can select the lowest cost effective intervention first, whether it is a discount, extension of discount, or it is, let us say, premium program where we are inviting the most possible, the customers who are likely to churn. So, all this or we will come up with a broadcasting, some news, some this one informations regarding the product, so that we can educate the people regarding this, relating to product. In that case, what is going to happen? We will try to choose the lowest cost effective intervention first. What is the value given by the lowest intervention? What is the value that can be derived by the second lowest intervention, and so on. So, what we are basically doing is a cost benefit analysis. Then what we can do? We can measure the incremental retention and incremental profit. Incremental retention is nothing but due to this intervention, how many additional customers or what percentage of additional customers we are able to retain. Incremental profit is what is the additional business value that is derived due to this particular intervention. Moving forward, we need to understand what determines the retention profitability. This is important because at the end of the day, we have to take the initiatives, we have to take the interventions based on these root causes. First one, you need to understand customers value level, right. So, use your customers lifetime value calculation or value segment that is already defined by you. Then you can calculate the profitability for saving the customer. Next one is the cost of action and the operational capacity. So, you always need to keep a tab of what intervention you are going to take and what is the retention, expected retention, and whether your current operations or production unit can actually take care of that retention or not. So, that will determine the retention profitability. Then in the retention strategy, in the retention intervention, whether it is going to impact your margin or not. Let us say one of the most popular retention strategy is extending a discount. So, whenever you are extending a discount, you are squeezing on your contribution margin, and there will be a service related cost as well. So, now you need to do a holistic calculation of this cost and benefit, and then try to understand what will be the impact, whether it is worth retaining this set of customers with this intervention or not. There will be a numerical mathematical calculation which we are going to see towards the end of this session. Fine. Basically, the basic principle is that retention spend should follow the expected return. What you have to do? You have to spend more only when the expected profit gain is high, higher than the incurred cost. Next thing is that you have to avoid spending on customers who would stay anyway. Remember that we calculate the probability of churn. Let us say our high risk customers category has a probability of churn of 0.3. In this case, if there are 100 customers, 70 customers are going to be anyways stay with us, right. So, we do not need to we do not need much to do anything about this 70 customers. What we need to do is this: out of this 30 customers, can you reduce it to 20, can you reduce it to 10? So, that is what is going to give us the incremental profit or incremental value. So, you need to avoid spending on customers who would stay anyway. There is no point of extending a discount who is not looking for a discount. He is more concerned about the post purchase service, he is more concerned about the performance. So, there is no point of extending a discount to that person. It will just squeeze your contribution margin, nothing else. Next thing that you need to do is we have to avoid spending on customers who cannot be saved realistically. We must understand there are some customers who cannot be prevented, who cannot be stopped, they are anyways going out of our brand. So, in that case If we understand that, we need to stop the expenditure on them, right. Now, from a retention or churn point of view also, we need to understand the break even decision rule. Which is the language of the manager. Manager will only understand this cost benefit analysis, that this is the intervention I am proposing, and due to this particular intervention, the incremental value that the organization is going to get is this much, and this value is much more well above this cost associated with the intervention, and that is why you should take this decision. Managers will only understand this language, right. A retention action is justified when the expected profit from the saving the customer is higher than the cost of action. That calculation has to be done. Use the value bands and realistic save rates from the past campaigns. You can try to do a empirical analysis in order to predict the expected incremental profit and let us say anticipated possible cost, and based on that you will do a cost benefit analysis and take a decision. If it is breaking even, anything above breaking even, you will take a positive decision. If it is not even breaking even, there is no point of starting with this initiative. Now, how can we measure the retention impact correctly? This is a critical aspect. Retention is extremely critical in the sense that some of the customers would have actually retained without even any intervention. The complexity is that bifurcating those customers from those who would not have retained in absence of this intervention. So, this is a complex phenomenon. What you have to do, and sometimes let us say we tend to evaluate the retention of a campaign based on the customer's feedback rather than the customer's actual behavior, which is not the right way to calculate it. You should not claim success based on the response rate alone. Rather, the success should be evaluated, the success should be measured in terms of the actual behavior, whether we have been able to win back some customers or not. Let us say we divide the entire customers into two groups. In one group we are not initiating any intervention, in other group we are initiating some intervention. So, what is the difference between incremental value between these two groups, and that will give us the exact value, right. What we have to do? We have to measure the actual churn reduction compared to the similar group. There will be a control group analysis. In one group we will put the intervention, in another group we will not put any intervention, and then see whether intervention is worth it in terms of its financial calculations. Third thing we need to take into account is that we need to always separate the correlation from the true impact. What is correlation here is something like the control variables, like for example, let us say there is a crisis of supply in the industry. Anyways, though the customers are dissatisfied, in this particular phase customers are likely to stay with you. So, you cannot attribute this retention to your marketing intervention, rather it can be attributed to the situation. So, those things needs to be taken into consideration, and only a holistic approach of evaluation will give you these insights. Bottom line is that incremental lift is the key metric. We need to identify, we need to calculate the incremental lift in profit. What is lift? Lift means the improvement in retention caused by the intervention. Let us say in absence of the retention, in absence of this intervention, 30% would have churned from your brand, but in presence of this retention only 20% are churning. So, these 10% are your incremental gain, which can be directly attributed to this intervention. Without lift, there is no proof of value. Unless and until we can calculate this lift, then how do I calculate the value that is given to our brand by this intervention? That is why we need to carefully calculate the lift holistically. I mean, we have to take all the possible relevant control variables into account in order to correctly attribute the percentage of lift to this marketing initiative or marketing intervention. Lift should be tracked by segment, not only the overall. So, if we do not do a segment wise analysis, then we cannot optimize our future course of actions in terms of the marketing interventions. Let us say one initiative is taken across multiple segments and we are just calculating the overall value, overall incremental value. Then in that case, let us say our top segment is contributing to 90% of this value. Then in that case, probably what we are doing, we are wasting our money on the, let us say, bottom two segments. We should concentrate more on the intervention only on the top tier segment, because that is creating the 90% of our value, incremental value by this intervention. Only the VIP, I mean this intervention has the capability of preventing the churn rate of the VIP customers, not the basic customers. We can come up with another customized intervention for our basic customers. Let us say for our VIP customers, we are extending the service level. We are giving them a customized service and that is working perfectly fine for them. The churn rate is reduced, let us say, from 40% to 20%. But on the other hand, for the basic segment, it is not working to that extent. So, in that case, another initiative, possible initiative is that we are extending a discount in some forms and we can see that their churn rate is getting reduced from 30% to 15%. So, this needs to be done, this needs to be evaluated separately, this needs to be, I mean, probably we have to come up with customized interventions for each of this segment. Now, let us look into this example. A company targets 1000 high risk customers. Without any action or without any intervention, about 300 of them are expected to churn, 30%. Therefore, the company runs a retention offer costing 100 rupees per customer. So, the total cost will be 100 multiplied by total 1000 customers, high risk customer, that is 1 lakh rupees. After the offer, the churn falls to 240. Initially anticipated churn was 300%, now the churn has fallen from 300 to 240, which means that we have retained 60 additional customers through these interventions. Now, we need to calculate the customer's lifetime value of these 60 customers. If the average profit value per saved customer is 3000 rupees, the profit gained is 3000 multiplied by 60, that is 1,80,000 rupees, which is more than the incurred cost, which is 1 lakh rupees. Thus, the program creates a net gain of 80,000 rupees and it is a positive value, it is financially worth it. So, we as a business decision maker has to recommend this initiative. Remember that it is not as easy as these calculations, because these calculations are done based on assumptions. Anything goes wrong with the assumption, it is directly going to impact your finances, right. Let us say instead of 3000 rupees, let us say average customers lifetime value of this additionally saved customers, instead of 3000 rupees, it is, let us say 1500 rupees. In that case, what is the incremental gain we are getting is 60 multiplied by 1500, that is 90,000 only, and the cost associated with 1 lakh rupees. So, in this case, the decision will be reversed, not to go with the intervention. We are better off even in absence of this interventions. Retention return on investment. This is you can consider it as a matrix. What is the retention return on investment? We know a very basic marketing metric which is return on investment, or in case in special context of marketing we put it as marketing return on investment. In a very special context or super special context of retention, we can term it as retention return on investment. How do I calculate it? So, this is like the additional value that can be attributed to the retention strategy divided by the total value, right. So, this is what gives you, I mean the value that could have been created without the retention. So, compare the incremental profit from the saved customers against the total program cost. Additional value divided by the total cost incurred in these interventions, that gives me the multiplied by 100, that gives me the retention return on investment, and this is one of the indicator of decisions. Report results as profit impact and return, not only as saved customers. So, retention rate is normally calculated in terms of customers retention, number of customers, but we need to calculate it in terms of revenue and profit as well in order to take a business decision. What can be done in order to make our model better, in order to make our assumptions correct? We need to track the results over multiple cycles, not just only 1 month or 2 months. So, what happens if we look into the results over multiple cycles? It gives us more confidence. The more data is trained. If more data is trained, then in that case we are getting a more robust model and our assumption stands to be correct. It tends to be correct. Now, another aspects that we need to look into is the discipline of discount. Something going wrong? Extended discount. I mean people are getting churned, extended discount even without root cause analysis. This is not a right strategy. Many organizations tend to do it because of information, because of the lack of insights. So, avoid this profit destruction. Discounts can retain customers, but often reduce the margin. That facts needs to be taken into consideration. Some of the customers will be retained because of the discounts, but if it squeezes your profit to a higher extent, then it is better not to have those customers than keep extending the discount to them. I mean it is always a critical call whether you should continue your business with discount mongers or not. It depends on the break even analysis. Many customers accept discounts even if they would not churn. If you are extending discount, everybody is going to accept it, but unless and until there is a root cause analysis in place, there can be a possibility that the customer would have anyways continued. The customer is satisfied with the quality of the product, the customer is satisfied with the post purchase service given to them, and the customer is going to continue with the product even in absence of discount. Then in that case it just becomes a waste of money, waste of contribution margin. Prefer targeted, time bound and conditional offers rather than keep extending the discount. Otherwise the customers will also take it for granted that they deserve a discount, that discount is their right. So, rather than that, as it squeezes the contribution margin, you always prefer to have a targeted, very time bound and conditional offers, such as the offer given in Big Billion Day, right, in order to increase the overall sales for the company. So, you do not keep it for every day, otherwise it becomes meaningless. Once you give, more often you tend to extend the discount to the customers, then in that case the customers will consider it as a price rather than a discount. Pricing and plan actions that reduce the churn profitability. Some of the better options rather than extending a discount to customers can be, let us say the customers are not using a product to its fullest extent, and let us say that subscription is of premium type. Then instead of extending a discount to the customers, you give a downgraded versions of this subscription. that works perfectly fine for the customers. Customers do not need all these features. He needs a limited number of features. So, instead of extending a discount to the customer, sometimes extension of discount becomes an indicator of quality or perception of quality. So, instead of doing that, you downgrade the subscription to a limited extent and offer him a better price. That can be a better option. It does not squeeze your contribution margin, at the same time it does not make a question on the quality of service that you are providing. Then provide pause or flexible billing when appropriate. Let us say somebody has been your customers for last 5 years and now the customer is not purchasing and there can be a financial issue with the customers, then what you can provide is a pause or flexible billing, that instead of paying upfront you pay in installments. That can be another option. And next one is you can remove the friction at renewal and payment points. Any problem that is happening in the renewal or in the payment gateway has to be fixed out. Now, what leadership should see every month, because you know that customers' behavior is a evolving phenomenon. It is not a static phenomenon, especially in a dynamic market conditions. So, you need to keep updating the assumptions, you need to keep updating the calculation, you need to keep updating the metrics. Churn and retention by segment and value band, first step that you can do. Then incremental lift by intervention type. What is the lift? What is the additional profit that is derived from a digital campaign? What is the additional profit that is derived from a let us say newspaper campaign? Then calculate the program cost, the profit impact on profitability of the business due to this campaign, and what is the ultimately return on investment of a campaign. Another aspects that you need to know is the key reasons for churn and that require product or service fixes. Unless, so two things you have to do every time. One is identify the customers who are likely to churn in the near future. Second one is the what are the underlying reasons for their possible attrition. And based on that you have to design your interventions, then only you can get a better incremental lift of profit. So, I will conclude this session with a sentence that retention is an investment spend where the expected return is highest. It is always associated with cost and benefit analysis rather than in isolation. We will look into the cost associated with the interventions, we will look into the anticipated profit or business value due to these interventions, and based on that we as a manager has to take a decision. Thank you. I will see you in the next class.